Let's talk about Iran. Both you and President Trump were profoundly opposed to Barack Obama's nuclear deal known as the JCPOA. The Iran deal, and this was what the president said in 2018 when he withdrew from the deal, the Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. You yourself called it disastrous. Now it looks like the administration is heading into another deal. So, simple question, what would a good deal with Iran look like?
Well, you know, we have good people negotiating that and involved in it, obviously. Let me just say a couple things about the previous deal, and then I'll compare it to now. The previous deal was bad for a number of reasons. It gave Iran immediate and full sanctions relief in exchange for enrichment capabilities that at any point could be weaponized in the future. They got to keep that permanently. They got to keep the sanctions relief permanently, and they only had to live by the enrichment limitations for a defined period of time. In fact, right now, we are entering that period of time in which the requirements of that deal would have expired. So it was a bad deal all the way around. We gave them permanent concessions for temporary concessions on their part. So now we've reached that point. Let me make a second point, and that is the worst thing we do not want a war. We do not want to see war. This is not a president that campaigned on starting wars. And as he said very clearly, Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon, and he reserves every right to prevent that from happening, but he would prefer it not happen. He would prefer that there not be need to resort to military force either by us or anybody else. He would prefer that it be something that we can negotiate. The Iranians have shown a willingness to talk. We're going to talk to them. If there is a chance at peace, we're going to give peace and a peaceful resolution to this challenge every opportunity to succeed. Our priorities remain the same. If Iran wants a civil nuclear program, they can have one just like many other countries in the world have one, and that is they import enriched material. Now, we're not going to negotiate this in the press. We're not going to negotiate this publicly because it undermines negotiations. But there's a pathway to a civil, peaceful nuclear program if they want one. But if they insist on enriching, then they will be the only country in the world that doesn't have a weapons program, quote unquote, but is enriching. And so I think that's problematic. But again, let's give peace every chance here to succeed. I don't want to see a war. The president certainly doesn't want to see one either.
Some who are watching these negotiations unfold and who have watched the JCPOA and then its unraveling are warning that this deal is on a path potentially to be similar or weaker to the JCPOA. And one of the reasons they're saying that is because Steve Witkoff gave an interview in which he said that the goal should be to ensure that Iran's uranium enrichment would be capped at something like 3.5% for civilian use and verified. And the reason critics are saying that is a very bad sign is because they're saying, why shouldn't the U.S.'s position be zero enrichment and the complete elimination of the program?
Yeah, well, I think Steve subsequently followed up by clarifying that what he meant is that that would be the limit of what they would be allowed to import for their domestic program. And they do that now. They do have a nuclear reactor that imports Russian enriched material at 3.67, and that's what you need but they don't enrich it themselves. So I think what the point he was trying to make in that interview and has subsequently clarified was he's talking about the level of enrichment that they would be allowed, the level of enriched material that they would be allowed to import from outside, like multiple countries around the world do for their peaceful civil nuclear program.